my good spot.
Whatevs, man, whatevs. Oh, is this side better for you? Come, I'll get on this side then.
Okay. Your camera's like foggy.
Can we flip it over?
What?
So that it's the other way around? No, not like that. Like.
No, you can't make it so it's like that.
Like facing that way?
No.
Oh. We're a little foggy here. Okay. Okie dokie. So now we're supposed to wait for Samantha, I believe, to send us a message of some sort.
No, you're in my hair.
Sorry, it's long.
And then just move those things over.
Okay.
Sorry guys, technical difficulties.
Okay, is that Samantha on there? Marlise Champagne watching. Hi everyone.
Hi everyone. Okay, so I'll do. Should we go?
Well, I'm wondering if we should wait for Samantha to give us our thing. Okay. Do you have? You know what? I should have got her to call you on your phone.
That's okay. Everyone's watching.
Hi everyone.
Everybody.
Okay.
We'll just start. Okay.
Okay. But I thought that was our specific instructions to wait till she gives us a photo. Can you guys hear someone? If you can hear us and see us, can someone put a thumbs up in the viewership? For those of you who's watching, someone could just give us a. If the audio is on, we have 5 people watching right now.
Come on, Ray.
Come on, I know Ray.
Come on, Ray. Be that person.
Okay, so we got someone there. Thumbs up! We got the green light. Okay, so we'll get the show on the road, and I'll let Lauren start us off here. Okay. What?
Okay. Hi everyone, my name's Lauren LaValle and welcome to the Sunday Night Indigenous Sex and Love Show, ANPVA Special Edition.
Yes, and I'm Edward Sear, Lauren's co-host or host. We co-host together. So I want to give a big acknowledgement and thank you to ANPVA and Task for creating this wonderful opportunity for us to come on here live, and for all the other amazing community members who've stepped up to do a live watch party. If you don't know, I just wanted to. Ray's saying it's Friday. We know Ray. If you don't know, ANPVA is an organization that helps create watch parties for people to share traditional knowledge, their life experiences, and to really empower Indigenous people and our stories. So that's what we're here today to do. Is we're going to talk a little bit about sex, love, and relationships. In particular, we're going to talk about dating during the pandemic. We're going to talk a little bit about domestic violence and how to reduce those things. And we're going to try to keep this very open. And we're also going to talk, hopefully, if we have time, talk about how to keep the spice in your relationship if you're already in an existing relationship, and what you can do to increase that fun and intimacy during a global pandemic. So I'll let Lauren take over from here.
So we're going to do introductions. I'm going to tell you guys who I am, and Eddie will go when I'm done. Okay. So my name is Lauren LaValle. I'm Ojibwe and Trini. I'm from Batchewana First Nation and Whitefish River First Nation. I'm Bear Clan. My spirit name is Evening Star. And I was born and raised here in Toronto. And yeah, that's a quick intro about me.
Okay, my name is Edward Sear. My father is Eddie Wilmette. My mother is Diane Sear. I always like to say their name because they're monumental instruments to the song I sing in my life. I am Algonquin from Eagle Village First Nations, which is located in Kippawa, Quebec. I am of the Algonquin people. And I am Eagle Clan. My spirit name is Kichitawa Migazi, which means Sacred Eagle Man. Eagle Clan, Eagle Man, that rhymes. Cool, I should make a rap later about that. So, so let's just dive right into it. And
so we have to explain what the sex show is for folks who don't know. That's right.
Okay, so if you don't know and you've been living under a rock and you're not part of the Indigenous community, we created the Sunday Night Indigenous Sex and Love Show
back in 2018, and it all started with Game of Thrones, and we were watching like Game of Thrones together. I also just want to add in there that I'm a single household, and so is Eddie, and so we're allowed to go to one other household, so that's why we are together, and we don't have masks and stuff. But yeah, we created the sex show back in 2018, all because of Game of Thrones, and we did it to reduce the shame and stigma like around sex during the time, and that was when the government had cuts to sexual education for TDSB. So we as Indigenous folks decided like, okay, like let's step up and let's do something about this. So we created like a 10-episode series. You can access it on Facebook and YouTube. And it was just a 3-person team. It was me, Eddie, and Damon. Shout out to Damon and Antoine.
Damon Antoine, we love you.
He was our cameraman and he was our editor, and he was amazing.
That's right.
And we did really successful considering like we like literally just came up with it out of nowhere and just started doing it. Like we got Stephanie Pangowish in our videos. We had Jared Lehman. We had Ashley Collingbull. We had Fatima Mektab. We had a lot of amazing guests featured on our show.
For sure. So one of the things that me and Lauren have been talking a lot about is creating season 2, and so we're actually in the process right now of trying to secure some funding. So if you are a service provider out there and you are interested in having myself and Lauren be maybe a part of your team, we are looking for funding for season 2. And one of the reasons why we think it's really important is because there is a global pandemic happening right now, and so. That's something that's really, really important to talk about. So I guess I want to jump into dating during a pandemic. And what does that look like? How has it changed? And what do you need to know about dating during a pandemic? Right now we're trying to make room because I talk a lot, so I try to like give that little blank space for my co-host to talk.
Edward can literally talk forever.
Yes.
So dating during the pandemic is really interesting right now. We're going through different phases, and with every phase there's different rules. So we're going to talk a little bit about mostly like the phase we're in right now because we're in a state of emergency. And yeah, it could be super challenging. So when COVID first began, we were doing research. And they found that there was a huge my auntie said wear masks while having sex.
Yes, so that is, and, I love the humor that's involved in this because and hopefully maybe we'll get into that a little bit later when we're talking about how to spice up your sex life and your relationship. And yeah, wearing like a mask and doing role plays, or you're a doctor, or, there's different things that we can do to really use this pandemic to actually enhance our sexual experiences with our existing partners.
Yeah. So I was going to get into, so there was a huge spike in online dating. Mm-hmm. So research showed that dating apps like spiked phenomenally. Like Tinder had gone up 30%, Bumble had gone up 20%, and Tinder had the biggest amount of swipes to the right, I think.
March 29th.
3 billion swipes to the right.
So 3 billion people are saying, I like you on that day. And we thought that's really cool. One of the other amazing things that when we were doing our research before coming on here to talk about what we need to know about online dating, one of the big things that we came up to is that the messages in Tinder, Briar Rose in the house.
We love you, Briar.
We love Briar. We love you, Riot. That's my goddaughter. There too, a little Riot. But one of the things that they noticed is that the messages sent to one another in things like Tinder and Bumble had increased proportionally. So that means people are talking more and engaging more and really starting to dive into that deep area because people are not able to meet up. So what they're really, and I think it's a good time to actually be online dating. And the reason why I think that is because people are really connecting right now in a more intimate way. In terms of, because you can't meet, because there's no money involved, there's no sex involved, because you're not supposed to be out doing those things. And for those of you who are, we consider that still a very high risk behavior right now, because not only are you putting yourself at risk of, a sexual transmission, but we also know that this pandemic is, as someone had mentioned earlier, wear a mask when you're having sex now.
Yeah. So it brings the question, like, can people even connect over like video chat? And so research says that you can definitely feel a spark or a connection or attraction over video. And so Eddie was saying now is a good time, and researchers have said it is a good time to date because money and sex are off the table. Like you really are just communicating over video for an extended period of time until you're allowed to. So you're actually getting to know the person more intimately. And like you're not like wooing them with like a huge fancy dinner and you're spending lots of money. It's literally just super personal one-on-one time over video. So it is a really good time today is what people are saying.
And I really love about this too, and it's one of the hardest things to do when we are dating or in a relationship, and that is and that's being vulnerable. Because people aren't because there's lack of employment, there's lack of resources, there's lack of going out at the club and showing pictures of bottles and really trying to impress, because those things are all taken off the time. So it's a great time to talk about, who am I? How do I feel? Because these times are really exposing a lot of vulnerable moments for all of us. I mean, if you're one of the many people who has lost employment during this time or has had your employment reduced, it's a really, really great time to talk about what that feels like. And it's also a great time to set goals and to have ambitions. And I think that's one of the most attractive qualities that you can talk about on a date is what are your goals and aspirations? It's something that I often ask when I was dating, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What's your family dynamic like? Tell me about your culture. Tell me about who you are. Are you Mohawk? Are you Cree? Are you Algonquin? To really dive into like, who are you, instead of how the world perceives you.
Yeah. So just to reiterate, experts are saying do not date in person during this time. Try to refrain to. And so we're gonna mostly focus on like the state of emergency that we're in right now, but
that's right. Phases
do come and go, and so when we are in a different phase, we're allowed to make contact with people. Obviously with social distancing, like experts recommend like getting a COVID test before going on dates. Bring hand sanitizer, bring a mask.
That's right.
Just be cautious when you do go on dates, when we're allowed to be in contact with the public again.
That's right. And so I want to just emphasize some stuff that we talked about in first season. And that is about how to date safely the first time. And so in the event that things open back up and you are getting ready to meet that person, not only are you going to wear a mask and sanitize and, to make sure that you're doing your social distancing, but also we want to remind people how important it is, especially for the first time you're dating, to meet in a public place. Never go to someone's apartment for the first date. We don't encourage that here on the Sunday Night Indigenous Sex and Love Show. One of the reasons we don't is that we know that, in particular, Indigenous women are one of the highest rate of exploitation, sexual trafficking, abuse. And so that, sometimes people will be like, hey, why don't you come over my house and we'll watch a movie? Like, yeah, that's like after you've really built that bond with them. So that's just some stuff that we talked about in the first one. That still applies during a global pandemic. Do not let anybody manipulate you or pressure you into coming over to their place, or you going to them coming to your home. That is your personal space. Build a relationship before you allow that, because now is a time for predators as well to use that vulnerability. Both men and women who are predators, because there is both, to really exploit that vulnerability, because people are lonely, they're vulnerable, and they're so desperate for that intimate connection. And so there's a lot of people out now that are going to use that to be like, well, why don't you just come over? We've been talking to each other for months now, like. Maybe we just come over and watch a movie. And for a lot of people, watching a movie is code talk for let's have sex. So I really encourage people to make sure that they are not meeting anybody the first time at their apartment in a secluded park. These are dangerous behaviors. Hi, O'Hara Adams, love you.
So I just want to give some recommendations where you can get tested when we're allowed to go out and mingle again. So Women's College Hospital has testing. You just have to make an appointment online. If you're Indigenous, there's the Anishinaabe Health COVID-19 mobile bus, so you can get tested there. And then Michael Garron Hospital is another hospital that offers COVID testing. And then there's just so many sites all over the city. Like if you Google it, like there's literally one on at every intersection realistically right now, like on the weekends, during the weekdays. So yeah, I just want to recommend that. I just want to give some tips to some single folks who are looking how to date right now, because it's hard to meet someone in person. It's hard to meet someone in person in general, and during COVID, it's even harder. So we were looking online, and research says that meeting people over how do I say this? So for instance, my friend, she actually was able to connect and meet someone over online training at Toronto hostels. So people recommend to join like cooking classes or to join these training groups because there's different people sitting in these chats. And then if you see somebody, you can privately message them. Just say like, you have a nice smile. If you want to exchange contact information, like that would be cool. So those are opportunities of how to get connected with folks if you're still interested in dating.
Absolutely.
During this time.
Amazing opportunity to really get involved in. There's an abundance of online supports being put in place. ANPVA is just one of many. Like right now, we have a whole bunch of people who are joining in, who are talking. I want to also give a big shout out to Whitney. My coworker just had a baby. So there is love. And I don't know if anyone's noticed, but people are having babies during the
pandemic, COVID babies.
There's all these so small little
babies.
COVID babies, and I'm so full of gratitude that there's just so many little humans coming into this world. And so I just want to give a big shout out to my friend Whitney. She is all the way in Saskatchewan, and she just had a beautiful little human being. So I want to just really acknowledge my coworker and really just kind of put that out there. And also my goddaughter Riot, who's a brand new little human being to the world.
Riot.
And so yeah, it's a really great time to connect online. And I want to encourage, dating and courtship and flirting is not gender specific. So if you are, it's okay if you are a male or a female or a non-gendering conforming person to reach out and to say hi to somebody. I always encourage people to give compliments about who someone is opposed to what someone looks like. It's very easy to say, oh, you're very beautiful, you're very attractive. And I try to be cognizant about this with my relationship now because I work at the ANPVA Early Ons program. So I work with small little children, and I love giving them compliments about who they are as little children, because I want those little boys and those little girls to know I'm like, you're so funny, or you're so smart, or you're so kind. Things about who they are, not how they look. It's so easy. You're so cute. We got all these interesting.
Look at that comment. COVID babies. Oh my God, there's so many stories to tell young ones when they grow up.
And so I think these children are going to be very, very special gifts of resiliency because they're born during a very vulnerable and desperate time.
The first year of a child's life is like the most important year, and there is no like interaction for babies right now, which is really unfortunate and sad. And it's going to affect them when they're older. But
the plus side is that parents get to spend that time at home with their small humans right now, right? Where both parents are typically out at home working, there's this opportunity now for and one of the hardest things to do is to turn every negative situation into a positive situation. And so sometimes when we lose employment or the loss of revenue equals an increased relationship with our children, with our families. And to me, I've been saying this for forever since I started working. The only thing that really matters is each other. And we often forget that in a world where things are so superficial and it's about owning a house in a city where houses cost $1 million, how much money we have, how many trips we're able to go on in a year, and a lot of these things they're very external things, and I think our relationships with our children, with our mothers, with our brothers, with our sisters and our friends and our family, that's about who we actually are. What do our relationships look like, right? So, do you want to jump right into the next note there?
Yeah, we can go into the next note. So we're going to talk about like the complications dating during COVID-19 because although it seems like a great time to date, there's a lot of challenges right now. So research has shown due to like the stressful circumstances people are in right now, so people are losing their jobs, they're losing their housing, they're isolated, they're completely alone. Research has shown that people are jumping into relationships. So they're moving too quickly and doing things too fast and not really thinking things through, I guess, logically. So people are like moving in right away after like knowing a person for a month and like, they've combined their finances because it's a hard time. There's not a lot of people employed right now. Like I'm one of the few fortunate people right now who's employed. I'm a shelter worker, so I'm at work every day. And so, yeah, people are jumping into these relationships to kind of like save themselves. And then, they're hopelessly romantic, like, they're lonely. And so it's creating like like a conflict right now. So people are jumping into relationships and they're not really knowing who they're jumping into a relationship with, and that could be concerning because experts recommend that you at least get to know the person for a year before moving into something more serious. So what people are calling this, they're calling it turbo relationships. So people are getting together and then they're splitting super fast as well. And then you're in an even more stressful situation, because now you're with somebody you don't even want to be with, and you're living together and you're splitting your finances. So
let's be honest here. Toronto rent prices got people in relationships that were over a long time ago, but they cannot afford to move out. They just can't afford it, and that just based on that rent that we pay in Toronto, people are staying in relationships that I don't love them anymore. I don't want to be with them anymore. But those rent prices got you staying in relationships that were done a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So I mean, imagine now you're jumping into during a global pandemic, how hard that is to go through that separation. So it's really important to be independent, self-sustaining, and non-reliant on your partner as well.
Yeah. So some of them work out, some of them don't, and that's okay. But we want to talk about the more serious issues that are coming with COVID, and that's domestic violence and intimate partner violence in the household. So research has shown that there's a spike in intimate partner violence right now.
Yes.
All over the world with the pandemic.
And Canada-wide as well, and more personally for people who are living on Turtle Island. And I think this is really important to talk about too, because I want to really reach out to our friends and family who are on reservations as well, who are not only isolated during this time within their own homes, but we're fortunate enough to live in a big city where there's lots of resources and lots of people that we can call for that help. And so research has also shown that loss of employment, reduced income, and are all things that, and isolation are all things that increase domestic violence. So when we're talking about domestic violence, I want to talk about emotional abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, and an inability to escape that. Now, traditionally, if these things are happening in the home, there's often a period where the person responsible or the domestic abuse, there's normally time during the day where someone goes to work or they're off doing things, and that space and time apart sometimes helps just develop that patience and really working through those things. But people don't have that anymore. So people are not at work anymore. They're not going to their college or university. They're learning from home, and that puts immense amount of pressure and increases hostility. I want to give them our second shout out to ANPVA and Task for making this happen. We do want to do that 3 times. That's number 2 that we just wanted to really thank them, because thinking about domestic violence, and I wonder how many people who are watching us tonight are in a abusive, toxic relationship.
And thankfully, there's a lot of resources in Toronto. And
you're not alone.
I work at the Thunder Women Healing Lodge Society. We have a housing worker. She supports people who are fleeing domestic violence situations. Native Women's Resource Center, they have a domestic violence team. Native Child, they have domestic violence teams. And there's an abundance in Toronto for folks like Undayan and stuff like that. They provide shelter. And so just consider those resources if you are in that situation.
So one of the strategies that we want to really implement, because there's is reaching out to friends and family as well who might be within your social bubble. We know that the social bubble is so small right now. So for instance, Lauren's one of the people that's in my social bubble. My mother, my sister, I have a cousin or 2 that I'm visiting right now. That's very small. So if I was in a domestic violence situation and all those households are full, and I'd have so many resources for my other friends and family to reach out for help, but that's our social bubble. It's very small right now. So we want to encourage those friends and family to reach out to who they do have, who's in their social bubble and who can help them, and even consider taking a little bit of space. And I want to make it very clear that the issue with domestic violence is a very complex one, because especially when you have children involved, so you can't always leave right away. There's things like taking space where, someone like me and Lauren will say, why don't you take some space? For some people, that escalates the violence in the relationship because you have very controlling and possessive people. And I want to remind all of our people out there in relationships that your partner is not a possession. Whether you are a man or a woman, they're not your belonging. They do not own you, and we do not own them. And that they are. Love is about giving someone that freedom and space to choose you. It's about giving them that freedom and space to consistently choose you. And I often say, love is a confident expectation, not a forced invitation. And that when we're forcing people into relationships with us, that's no longer love. That's about possession.
Yeah.
And so
we recommend safety plans, drafting safety plans with just for yourself. If you have children who are old enough to be a part of that process, doing it with them, including your friends and family in that safety plan. And we always recommend if the situation is extremely violent and call 911.
That's right. Number one rule: if you are being hurt, call 911, guys. Don't then. I want to really, really lean away from this. You're a rat. You're a tattletale. You're that. That is. We gotta really get away from that stigma and shame around calling the Toronto Police Services for help. We cannot beat your partner up. You cannot give them black eyes. You cannot choke them, hit them. These are dangerous things to do. And we read about it in the papers and the magazines where these people, in some instances, the people kill their partners. And so we want to encourage people: if you feel that your safety and your health is at risk, call the police, guys. Make that something you do. And I think this is what I'm pulling up some resources.
Yeah,
here.
I'm just pulling up some resources. So there's the Assaulted Women's Helpline. It's 24 hours. So that's 416-863-0511 or 1-866-863-0511.
Okay. And well, you know what we'll do after this video is done, I'm going to post those same numbers on our on my Facebook so that people have access to them. And those are if you can make those phone calls, and this is the other big challenge. How do you make those phone calls when the person's in the house all the time? And we want to encourage you, go for a walk.
So that is something that's allowed right now. So during the state of emergency, people are allowed to go for walks.
That's right.
They're allowed to exercise. If you want to go walk your animal, you're allowed to do so. And you're allowed to go out into the community to buy essential products and to also help folks who are in need of help. That is actually listed on the website. You're allowed to go help community members who need help. So for that circumstance, it's okay to go meet with somebody because that's an emergency.
And that's right. I think the other piece of that puzzle is that just going for a walk, because I want to also say that a lot of the people who are perhaps abusive within relationships often were abused at some point in their life, or they have trauma, and I really want to encourage our men or our women who are the abusive ones to really ask for help for that. And be vulnerable enough to see you're wrong, because I know that working with people who were abusive in past relationships, some of these folks do feel absolutely awful about it, and they don't know how to ask for help because there's so much shame and stigma around being abusive. But I look back even at the history of violence. Our parents, for instance, both of my parents grew up in a time where their fathers hit their mothers. That was very normal. So my parents had watched that growing up, and it's as they started, that's a social norm for them, and they didn't know that wasn't okay. And I'm very proud and grateful today that both of my parents, they're separated now, but both of them have done that work, and to not be a part of that anymore. And in return, that allowed my sister and myself to see that that's not healthy and that's not normal. Just based on them being able to separate, and for them to be able to now co-parent together, and to both recognize there's nothing more powerful than.
And I think Toronto Council Fire offers I Am a Kind Man program, which is for men who have been in that position. And I don't think there should be any shame or stigma attached with being someone who has been an abuser, because like Eddie said, in most cases, like something happened to that person, and that's just a result. Like that's just a response to what had happened to them. So there's no shame in it, and just, you know, there's resources out there if you're looking to get better.
I just want to really put a lot of, as an Indigenous man, to really just to honor our other Indigenous men out there who one of the hardest things I've ever had to be in this world is a man, and be an Indigenous man, and figure out what does that mean. And so oftentimes the things that I learned, that I'm going to tell you the 3 things I learned very early about being an Indigenous man, and not just an Indigenous man, but men. The first thing that I learned about being a man was about violence. And you see little boys playing, and they were roughhousing. If you look at our action figures, or Superman, Spider-Man, these people, the Ninja Turtles, and they all use violence to solve their problems. And we watch this on the television. It's put in our little children's minds so early that is part of masculinity. That's part of being a real man. The second thing I learned about being a man was this notion around money. And you see that in the hip-hop culture and in movies. For example, what's the woman with Richard Gere and Pretty Woman? Mm-hmm. So here's a wealthy businessman who's super rich, comes in and helps this woman who's poor, and she's in the sex trade, and saves her life. What a crock of BS. In reality, that's not what really happens. A lot of them rich, wealthy businessmen are exploiting those women in that. And that is about women in film. That's like, I took that class in college. It was actually one of my best grades to learn about how the media portrays them. And so we have this notion that if we have money, that then we are a man, and that's, we put money before our own integrity. And so we do things like, for instance, I think about people who I grew up with who were involved in the drug industry, who were selling narcotics, and they had felt like that's how they took care of their family, so they felt good about it. But they didn't, that was their ego. It wasn't their self-esteem, because they actually felt ashamed of it. They couldn't be proud of that. The third thing I learned about being a man was the over-sexualization of women got a lot of male validation. And so these are the 3 things I learned about being a man growing up. And I thought to myself, as I get older and I do my work, and I sit down with people like Lauren, I sit down with my elder, who's Alita, who's an Indigenous woman, and I reflect back and think that all the things I thought about being a man, being an Indigenous man, were actually wrong, were abusive. And so how do I redefine that? So the first one's around violence. I think a good man is able to resolve his issues with his words, and able to communicate, is able to be vulnerable. You don't have to be abusive, be vulnerable. The second one is a real man puts his integrity before any money. There's things that I will not be a part of anymore, because it takes away from who I am, and I can't feel proud about earning money like that. The next thing is the over-sexualization of women. That caused me a lot of, when I reflect back, now I have, like I said, I'm fortunate enough to have, was asked to be somebody's goddaughter. Like, I have a goddaughter now. My friend Briar asked me to be, and I think back to my early experiences of being with women. And there's one particular story that I'll share that's very vulnerable, and that was when I was a young boy. This girl, a couple of the other boys in the community I grew up with, asked me to come over to an area there, and there was a girl who's about our age at the time, or maybe 13, and she lifted up her shirt, and so the boys and them were touching her, and we're all just kids. And I remember being there and thinking and being a part of that, and I wish that I had a man in my life to tell me that wasn't how we treat women. And it gets me emotional when I talk about it, because there was no one there to tell me that was wrong. And so I ask, where are our fathers? And why are we not sitting with our little boys? And now I look back, I mean, this is 20 years ago now, and I think back, and not only now that I'm able to process that, and I go, that was wrong. I wish not only a man would have told me that, hey, that's not how we treat women, but I wish a man would have told me, make sure you tell them other boys that's not how we treat women. But all of our fathers were absent. So for those fathers out there who are present in their children's life, who are sitting down with their sons and their daughters, and I don't think that little girl, I don't think her father was present either. So I just wanted to just share that piece of vulnerability, and talk a little bit about how we treat our people.
I want to give a shout out to my dad, because my dad was there, and I'm blessed. I feel blessed every day that I had an Indigenous father who raised me, and he was a single dad from when I was 14 up until I was like in my early 20s. He took care of me, and he still takes care of me. So shout out to all the Indigenous fathers out there who take care of their children. Like, you guys are amazing.
And if you haven't taken care of your children, it's never the wrong time to do the right thing. If you've missed years and you feel this, it's always the right time, or the right time to do the right thing, guys. Reach out to your baby mama or the woman that you have your child with. Reach out, and I want to start mending those relationships. Get clean, get sober. I have a couple friends who are Indigenous men who have been sober for some time now, and to see these men post about their relationships with their children is so empowering and inspiring. And you take away those drugs and that alcohol and those unhealthy relationships, and you have men who really genuinely are able to love their children. And I think this is we weren't even planning to get into this direction, but we've traveled that way, and I'm gonna honor that, because I do think it's such an important piece of the puzzle. And I pray and I ask that our Indigenous women have patience with us, and to have empathy for us. And I know that I just really want to acknowledge that the women in my life have always been my backbone. They're my best friends. They're the people I go to and really support us. So I really want to give a big shout out to Indigenous women who are going and getting their degrees, who are paying the rent, who are doing all those things. And I'm just so grateful that we have these women who are so strong and so powerful. And I was saying this to Lauren earlier when we were talking. I'm just how proud I am to have, because Lauren's someone that I mentored a long time ago when I was working at the ANPVA early on.
Yeah, I used to be an ANPVA. I was an ANPVA kid, and then I was an ANPVA placement student. Then I was an ANPVA employee. But when I was a placement student, Eddie was my mentor. Yeah,
and so I remember coming into our drop-in, and Lauren's would have a keyboard prints on her face because she fell asleep on the laptop at work and she was there doing her homework, and she just worked so hard. And then to watch her get employment at the Toronto Bell program, to then get a employment at the Native Child and Family Services Women's Transitional House. So I have friends that were living in there, and most recently, watching her apply for this job. And what did I tell you?
That I was going to get the job.
I said you were going to get that job because I have full belief in Lauren. And to have that transition of having someone look up to you, and then to be able, like, I look up to Lauren now. She has, she's got her own car. She's just done so. She has surpassed me. And if you are a worker out there, there's nothing more empowering than the people you're working with when they start to surpass you, because it's kind of like a parent. You always want your children to do better for you. So not too long ago, I was a youth, and I want the youth that I work with to do better than me. I don't want them to do as I've done, because I have a lot of hiccups too in my journey, right? So.
Yeah, and I think that just highlights that, like, men, women, however you identify, we all need each other. In this community, we just all need each other.
That's right. So I want to talk, we got about 7 minutes left, and I want to talk about how to keep the spice, how to keep the fire alive in your relationship. I think it's so important. And I want to give an acknowledgement, because one of the things, after we created the first season, I had so many people reach out to me for advice, and I don't know all the answers. Me and Lauren are not relationship experts, but we're
actually thinking about taking a course, though.
We were too, because we want to be considered relationship experts. So I was like, I want them to be able to say, you're a relationship expert. So that's on the list of #goals. But I had a lot of men call me, and they'd say, me and my woman, we're not having sex anymore. We had a baby, and blah, blah, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And the question I would often ask them is like, well, when's the last time you did the dishes, bud? When's the last time you took the baby and changed the diaper? When's the last time you
little things matter. As someone who works full-time, like as a woman who works full-time, and I pay all my bills and this and that, like I want to come home and I want dinner to be cooked. I want the garbage to be taken out. I want someone to rub my feet. Like, the little things make the biggest difference. And if I don't get that, then I'm a huge pain in the butt.
Yeah, and there's this old saying, happy wife, happy life. You don't want a grumpy girlfriend. And trust me, if she's grumpy, she's going to make you grumpy. So, or vice versa, right? So, that was some of the advice that I give is, It starts to help out around the house, guys.
You know what I think is huge right now? So I was actually trying to book a cottage getaway this weekend, and it was all booked. So I think that's a huge thing right now for couples spacing up their love life, because you can't go anywhere in the city. Like, nothing's open. But you can go to an isolated cabin with a hot tub and like beautifully renovated with whatever appliances and features in it, and you're allowed to do that. So Airbnb, I looked at all the cottages, they're all booked up. But I recommend people to do that.
That's right.
If you can find one available, like, because that is super romantic to get away out into like the woods. You know, you can go skiing, snowshoeing with each other. It's a bonding experience. So that's what I recommend right now during COVID to spice up your life.
And if you don't got the money to go to a cabin or anything like that, and I think children do play a huge role in, because I mean, I don't think we really appreciate how much work goes into being with a small human. But if you are in a relationship and you do have children, reach out to grandma or grandpa and let them have the kids for a night. Plan something for your partner. And once again, this isn't gender specific. I'm trying to really stay away from that, because I'm always constantly considering our LGBTQ2S community, and that wasn't something I always did. So I'm cognizant of it now. So I try to make sure that my the content that I share is not gender specific. But yeah, just finding that, or your sister or an auntie that can watch the small human if they're age appropriate to do so, and
and if they're in your household, because right now the state of emergency, it has to be within your household,
within your
or that one extra household you associate with, but do it within COVID protocols.
Yes, do within COVID protocols, but create that space for you and your partner to spend that time together, and it's also a great time too. I want to talk a little bit about role play in terms of and sexual vulnerability, and it's really important, I think, that we don't have to always be into what our partners are into sexually and intimately, but it's really important for us not to judge what they are into, because the minute we judge, like, if your partner says to you, "Oh, I'm really into," give me an example.
Let's say bondage.
Bondage. Okay, I'm really into bondage, and your response is, "Oh, I'm not like into that at all, and I'm not really interested," or I'm really into this idea of pulling hair or spanking, something along those lines." And your reaction will govern how much more vulnerable they'll be with you in terms of that. And so you don't have to be into it, but it's really important for us, if you want to have vulnerability within your relationship and a good, healthy, sexual, safe place for you and your partner to explore yourself and each other, I think it's really, really important to make sure that we're non-judgmental about when they're talking to us about things. And if they're not into something, or if you're not into something that they're into, then create your boundaries. You don't have to do anything you don't want to, but don't be judgmental of them, and make sure that you're conscious of your reactions to them, because people will often test you first before they tell you the full extent of what they're into. They might say something like like harder, or we'll use that as an example. And that is trying to slowly open a door to create dialogue about a deeper fetish or fantasy. And what we do know is that like sexual liberation and freedom and intimacy in a relationships like deeply widens our connections with people. And when we do have sex or engage in sexual activities, it releases endorphins. It's a huge stress relief. We got about 1 minute left.
So shout out to ANPVA once again.
That's right. And Task as well. And I wanted to just try to end our note on a fun, open-minded space. So if you're at home tonight with your partner, or you're about to see your partner, make sure you open up that mind, and create that safe dialogue to talk about sex and have fun. Make sex fun. Enjoy sex. It is a great form of human expression to one another, and it's really important I just want to end with this, to not use what happens in the bedroom in your personal fights. So if someone's vulnerable with you and says they're really into something, later on when you're in a conflict with that person, to not exploit that sexual vulnerability and be like, well, you said you like this and that. Like, don't do that, guys, because it really creates an unsafe place for that person. I think the most important thing we can offer our partners is a sense of emotional, spiritual, and physical safety and security. And with that being said, I hope everybody has an amazing night. And I want to thank ANPVA and thank Task and thank all the people who watched this watch party. Please share this link. Let's get lots of views on this video. And most importantly, I really want to thank my amazing co-host. You are...
I know, I'm the star of the show, guys. I'm the face and he's the talker.
I always say she's the beauty and I'm the brains, right? So
okay, I'm beauty and brains. He just talks a lot.
All right. But anyways, I absolutely love our community. I'm so proud of everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for supporting us all these years.
Love you guys. Bye. How do you get out of here?
You exit.
Don't do it.
Oh, it's so embarrassing.
Whatever. See, the shame.